Russia has abruptly cut off natural gas shipments to Poland and Bulgaria, widening its economic war with Russia since its invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, as the war continues to rage on the ground in Ukraine, concerns are rising about the millions of children among the over 5 million people who have fled Ukraine. And joining us now is Dr. Erwin Redlener, public health analyst and founding director of the National Center for Disaster Preparedness. He was just in Poland, which has received by far the most amount of refugees. And Dr. Redlener, tell us what you saw on the ground in Poland and what are your biggest concerns, particularly when it comes to the needs of the children?
Right, Zerlina, good to see you. But, obviously all of us in America and around the world have been watching with horror as Russia's invasion of Ukraine has taken so many lives, destroyed so many cities. What I was concerned about and why I went there was because I wanted to know how the children were doing, because the fact of the matter is when children are disrupted along with their families like this violently and suddenly, how much trauma do they have? How much psychological support do they need? Are they getting even the basic food, et cetera? And one of the big things that happens with refugees who are moving rapidly, including especially children, is the disruption of the educational trajectory. In other words, are they going to school and in what language? And how well are they being received in the host countries? And the thing that really struck Karen and I when we were there was that the Warsaw government has been incredibly welcoming. Warsaw's population has increased by 20% in a very short period of time, a matter of weeks, as they've been taking in more and more refugees. And they're opening their arms. They, the government forces, and you see there, that's the mayor of Warsaw, but the government agencies, along with a lot of other NGOs like the International Medical Corps, and various U.S. State Department offices and USAID have all been working as much as possible together, but everybody's got the same idea in mind. We've got to get these families stabilized. We've got to get the kids back in school. And they're just at the beginning now of trying to sort out this problem and figure out how they're going to make sure that these kids get back in some sort of sense of normalcy as soon as possible.
When you are in front of these children, can you sense that trauma that you're talking about? I mean, I can see it in the imagery that we're showing on the screen. I can see it in the videos that are coming from reports on the ground, but you've been there. You can look into their eyes. I mean, share some of the personal stories you witnessed and heard in terms of these children who have suffered unspeakable trauma.
Well, this is a really interesting and important question, Zerlina. And I think one of the things that struck us was that when you speak to moms and it's mostly moms here because the dads have been mostly staying to fight in Ukraine. But when you speak to mothers who are together and they got their, they have a sense of where they're going to go and they're supporting their children, younger children are doing really pretty much fine. As long as mom's doing okay, the kids are going to do okay. But with the older children, the teenagers, we spent 5 hours in a high school in Warsaw that had enrolled about 50 Ukrainian teenagers. And there we saw some of the more heartbreaking stories of teenagers who are extremely disrupted, many cases of severe psychological impact, including, we think, PTSD. And these are kids that need a lot of support. After all, they're in a country with an entirely different language, entirely different alphabet, concerns about where they're going to go. Are they going to be able to graduate high school and get on with their lives? They're missing their friends and their communities. That's where these direct conversations with these young people was really distressing. We asked them, questions like, what's the message that you want to give to American peers, American high school students? And they were saying things like, American kids, they should realize that what they have is fragile, to appreciate what they have, and to, understand what's going on with kids their age in Ukraine and other countries in the world. They were pleading for a lot of empathy and compassion and awareness about what's happening and an appreciation of what our own children have. It was really, really moving, Zerlina.
Do you think we're doing enough as a country, as the U.S., We hear the president, the administration talk a lot about the aid that we're sending. A lot of times it's specifically military aid and weapons. But on the humanitarian front, are we doing enough? Can we do more?
Well, I think we can do more, but as one of the senior USAID people said to me, this not only is this a huge, post-World War II refugee situation, the likes of which we haven't seen in a really long time in Europe, but the coordination among agencies trying to take care of these kids, and particularly the speed in which these refugees are coming across the border. It's very complicated because some Ukrainians are trying to get back to Ukraine after having been in some other country for some number of weeks. So it's very difficult. But I'll tell you, could we do more? I think we could do more. And one of the things that I would like to see U.S. government agencies, big agencies, focus on is how to make sure that the children are getting back to school. This is such a critical idea or such a critical strategy for making sure that kids are feeling some sense of normalcy and getting their lives back together. And I've actually spoken to USAID about this, and hopefully more to come about how Americans and the American government can help children get normalcy to the extent possible under these really, really difficult situations.
It's really, really important. Dr. Erwin Redlener, thank you so much for allowing us some insights into your trip and what you saw on the ground. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.